Okay, do you want to introduce yourself like we did before? I can like cut the beginning of this out.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jennifer Hoang, and I am a neuroscience undergraduate student, and my partner here is Rasneek Singh.
Hi, my name is Rasneek. I'm a third year psychology and public policy double major, and we are part of the Childhood Cognition Lab. So our study is on the effect of age, religious affiliation, ethnicity, and gender on children's developing moral reasoning. Our study aims were to understand what is the effect of age, religious affiliation, ethnicity, and gender on children's development of moral reasoning. This aim led to a couple questions, which were, does ethnicity and gender impact beliefs surrounding moral reasoning? What role does religious affiliation play in children's developing moral reasoning? And as children get older, are they more likely to distinguish a difference between what society considers moral and immoral? And these questions were important to us because of the polarized world that we currently live in. We want to see if ethnicity and religious affiliation especially had a relationship with moral reasoning to possibly help dispel myths if there is none. We also want to see if religious affiliation had, like, how large of a role it plays in children's lives, and then does which religion matter? Again, to tie back to the polarized world that we live in and hopefully to dispel some myths.
Our study focuses on the difference between reasoning behind the principles regarding moral and conventional violations. Moral violations are defined as actions that have a direct negative consequence on the welfare of others, while conventional transgressions are actions that violate social norms. Previous literature findings indicate that age is positively correlated with identity integration, which is characterized as the level of development regarding one's sense of responsibility for making and maintaining one's identity. So as with an older age, this is related to higher levels of identity integration and is also related to level of moral reasoning, which becomes more prominent with age. And this is possibly due to a higher cognitive ability, as moral cognition has been shown to mediate moral responsibility. Religion relates to moral reasoning by the level of commitment and involvement one has to the religion. And this is characterized as religiosity and is a positive predictor for moral identity, which is related to how one's morals is a part of who they are and how they act. There has been also shown to be a positive correlation between moral identity, religious reasoning, and practicing religion as an end in itself, otherwise known as having an intrinsic religious orientation rather than an extrinsic religious orientation. Although ethnicity can help predict moral reasoning, it is not strongly related to moral decision making. And gender could also be used to predict moral reasoning due to gender differences in an individual's self-concept, which is how one views oneself and how they believe they are meant to interact with others. And this can be highly based in gender roles and expectations.
So based on the aforementioned literature, these are our hypotheses. For age, we hypothesize that older children would have a higher moral reasoning score due to higher levels of cognition as one ages. For religious affiliation, we hypothesize that religiosity positively predicts moral identity due to findings that showed that it was positively correlated with moral reasoning. For ethnicity, we hypothesized that it would not have a significant effect on moral reasoning due to the population of our study and the westernized practices, because our participants were all from Southern California, and despite different ethnicities and different backgrounds, we believe that many of them have westernized practices. And then for gender, we hypothesized that there'd be no relationship between male and females for the development of moral reasoning.
There were 79 participants in total. The participants were ranging from ages 6 to 10 years old with a mean age of 8.39 years old. 53.7% of the participants were female and the remaining 46.3% were male. And there were 4 major religious categories the participants identified as, which were Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, and non-affiliate. Ethnicity was another factor that we looked at. However, it was not added into this slide because since ethnicity was self-reported, it was difficult to be able to categorize the ethnicity into in a concise way.
So using a series of scenarios presented to children in the lab based on different moral scenarios, children were able to answer if the scenario is moral or immoral by answering if they thought it was okay. So, parents self-reported the children's religious affiliation, age, gender, and ethnicity through a parent survey given to the parents in the childhood cognition lab when the study was conducted. Each child was read and shown a series of gender match scenarios regarding moral and conventional violations. And a definition of moral transgressions is an action that has a direct negative impact on someone else. And some examples of that were in our scenarios were hitting, shoving, calling names, or stealing an apple. And to define conventional transgressions, it was an action that violates social norms. So examples used in our scenarios were playing with the toy during snack time, wearing a bathing suit to daycare, not saying please when asking for something, or standing during nap time. And as you can see, all of these examples do not harm other people, but go against societal norms. So using 4 moral scenarios and 4 conventional scenarios, children were given the gender matched question and prompt. So for example, if it was a young girl, the question would be, here's Hannah. And the researcher would point to the first card and then would say, she's playing at the park. Suddenly, she walks over to a stranger and starts hitting her. Look. And then the researcher would point to the second card and prompt the child and ask, is it all right that Hannah hit another person? The child would then respond with yes, no, or I don't know. And depending on their answer, they were given a score. So the scale that we used was from 1 to 0, with no, it was not all right, being 1, and yes, it was all right, being 0. And then if a child said, I don't know, we did not include that in our total scores. Scores were summed out of 4 for the conventional transgressions and the moral transgressions, and then a sum total of 8 was given to each child, and they were given a score out of 8.
The findings of the study show that there was no significant relationship between moral reasoning and age, ethnicity, or gender. Conventional reasoning was also not significantly related to age, ethnicity, or gender. However, there was a small trending significance between religious affiliation and conventional reasoning. As you can see in the bar graph, there is not much difference between children of different religions and their answers regarding moral reasoning. Most children, regardless of religious affiliation, received a score of 4, indicating that they said actions like hitting and stealing were not okay. On the other hand, there appears to be a slight discrepancy with deciding whether conventional transgressions, such as playing during snack time or wearing a bathing suit to daycare, is okay or not okay. Non-affiliate children show to have the most discrepancy between both moral and conventional reasoning, meaning they were more likely to say that a moral or conventional violation was okay rather than not okay in comparison to the other kids.
So the main finding from this study was that children whose parents self-reported as being religious showed a relationship between having a greater level of reasoning behind their morality decisions. However, it does not show that children with a religious background had a greater understanding in making moral choices. It shows a more complex moral understanding due to understanding which transgressions break the normal rules of morality. So children were also more likely to think more questionably about whether conventional transgressions were okay or not okay. We also saw that older children were more likely to rate conventional and moral transgressions as not all right, hinting at a more complex moral understanding as you age. And it also suggested that there are higher capabilities in cognition, which allow for more critical thinking. And while there was a number of statistically insignificant results for ethnicity, gender, and age, we found that these results have big implications for society. And like we were hoping to see to hopefully dispel some myths, we were able to see that with ethnicity, gender, and age, there were not many differences between those groups and their understanding of moral reasoning. So due to this, we hope to be able to show that people that have these biases do not have the basis for it because there are no differences with ethnicity, gender, or age.
Future prospects of the study is to code open-ended responses. When children were asked whether the 4 moral or 4 conventional transgressions were okay or not okay, they were also asked a follow-up question as to why the action was okay or not okay, depending on their initial response. We are currently developing a coding scheme regarding these open-ended responses and are in the process of identifying themes that are based on the reason why an action is okay or not okay. We hypothesize that there will be differing themes between moral and conventional violations. For example, a theme regarding moral violations may be due to a dangerous outcome, and a conventional theme may be due to a location of an action, like at school or at home, that may change the answer to whether a violation is okay or not. These variations in themes between different types of violations can help us better explore the development of moral understanding and how children are similarly and conversely thinking about these topics.
We wanted to thank everyone for listening, and we want to thank our funding source, the Templeton Foundation, the Childhood Cognition Lab where this research was conducted, Dr. Rebecca Rickert, who was our faculty mentor, and Alicia Conover, who was a master's student that mentored us and helped us with this entire presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.